Okay. And if you have questions as we go along during the presentation, feel free to put them into the chat box. I'll be keeping an eye on that. And you can also feel free to unmute yourself and just quickly ask a question if you prefer to do that as well. Again, I don't believe we're going to need the entire hour today, but I do want to make sure that we do have time to get through everything. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so today we're going to be taking a look at some of the basic steps that you can take on every web page to make sure that your website content is accessible. So we'll talk a little bit about what web accessibility is, why it matters, who's involved, and what you can do as one of those participants. And then the 3 steps that we'll be taking a look at are the proper use of subhead styles, how to create contextual links, and then providing descriptive alt text on all of your images. So what is web accessibility? Basically, it's a concept and a practice of making sure all of your digital content, any digital interfaces, and any digital applications that you provide accessible to all users, regardless of any disability that they may have or what device that they may be using. So there are 2 standards for web accessibility, and the first one is Section 508, and those are actually federal guidelines. The second set of standards come from the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, commonly referred to as WCAG 2.0. They provide 3 levels of accessibility standards, and the university is actually striving for AA compliance with the WCAG 2.0 standards. So what's included when we're talking about web accessibility? It's actually really big and really broad. So not only does it include your website content, it also includes any documentation that you provide online. So if you're providing PDFs to users that they are supposed to download or fill out online, Word documents, any kind of document, those documents also need to be accessible as well. Additionally, any web applications that you have purchased and provide to your users as a service, you need to make sure that those applications are also accessible to your users when they are trying to access them to perform a task. It also covers content that you don't actually control, so websites and services that you link to. Essentially, you're saying as a university and as a unit within the university, we're endorsing this website and endorsing its services. And so we need to make sure that when we're sending our website visitors over to these other external websites or services that we're linking to, that they are also accessible as well. And then the last one is social media. We need to make sure that any social media content that we put out is accessible as well. Obviously, we don't have control over, the code base for Facebook, but Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, Snapchat, all of those services are very ubiquitous right now. Everybody's using them, so we need to make sure that when we're using them, the content that we're putting in there, if we can't control the code base, at least the content is accessible for all of our users, again, regardless of any disabilities that they might be dealing with or whatever device that they might be using to take in our website content. So when I speak about devices, what I mean is not everybody is looking at your website on a desktop computer. Quite a few people, especially with our students, if you're working in one of the academic sides, they're maybe not looking at a desktop computer or a laptop computer. They might be using a tablet or they might be using a mobile phone. And when you start thinking about users with disabilities, whether they be physical, visual, cognitive, they might be using other devices altogether. They might be using screen readers. If you have somebody with a mobility device, they might only be able to navigate using specialized keyboards or mice, or even you've seen those wheelchairs where they're specially outfitted with joysticks so that they can navigate that way instead. So these are all things that you need to think about, not just when you're designing your website during a project, but as you're continuing to manage it throughout the lifespan of that website or any of these other digital services that I've listed here. So we need to make sure that for these users as well, they're able to navigate your website, get the information that they need, perform any tasks that they need to perform, and to do it in an as intuitive manner as possible, and really as seamless a manner as possible as well. So that kind of leads into why does it matter. It's a best practice. It's also a matter of principles and ethics. I mean, you do want to make sure that again, we're making sure that we're not excluding anybody from being able to do what they need to do on our website just because they're not looking at it on a desktop computer. You want to make sure that regardless of the device they're using or any challenges that they're facing, they're still able to find what they need to find and do what they need to do. But it is also a legal requirement for higher education institutions receiving any federal funding. You're required to comply with the Section 508 standards, and I'll shoot you guys over a link to that in the recap resources so that you can kind of learn what that entails in a little more detail. But institutions that do not comply, and there's quite a few of them, obviously, because websites predate Section 508, but institutions that do not comply, including the university, GW, have faced litigation. So essentially, if we have a student who's trying, or a faculty member, or a staff member who's trying to use any one of our digital services and they're not able to because either the content's not accessible, it's not designed in an accessible manner, whatever the case might be, they have standing to start a legal complaint against the university to say, I wasn't able to complete my coursework or do my job or provide my students with the resources that they needed because the services that were provided to me by the university were not accessible for me. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about why does web accessibility matter, who does it cover, and now talking about what can you do. So, making GW's web presence accessible, it is a partnership between three parties at the university. The first one being the Division of IT. They are the stewards of the code base. So not just the code base for services like GW Drupal, which is what we'll focus on today, but other services and applications that the university manages as well. They need to make sure that the code is constructed in a manner that is accessible so that when other machines look at it, they're able to present the content to the users. Who, again, might be using these assistive devices. So when I say machines, I'm talking about search engine crawlers like Google and Bing and other website searches that people might be using, but also these assistive devices. They're not looking just at the text that you've put on the page. They're looking at the code that the developers have put into the system as well, and it has to be structured in a specific order in order for those devices and those machines to be able to read it intuitively for the end user. So the Division of IT, they are the stewards of the code base. Marketing and Creative Services, which is my team, we're stewards of making sure that the design is successful. And that's not just, the colors that you see and things like that, but it's the layout, the user experience. We need to make sure that we understand the way, not just for somebody looking at on a desktop computer looking at a website, we need to understand the way that the eye tracks across that page, but we also need to understand, okay, well, if they're on a mobile device, how does that work? If they're using an assistive device, how does that work? And then we need to come up with design standards that will make it easy for these users using these devices to be able to still do what they need to do and get what they need to, get the information that they need to get. So we are stewards of the design in that aspect. As well as the actual aesthetics of it. And we have to keep in mind, okay, if we're dealing with somebody who has a cognitive disability, what kind of color palettes do we need to stay away from that might present a challenge to them? If we're dealing with somebody who has low vision, how much contrast do we need to have between the colors in the graphics and on the text in the background, and things like that. And we also have to say, okay, if somebody can't see the page at all, how do we design things like subhead styles and things like that and images so that they can still get that information, which actually leads into the last item, which is you all as the site owners and content managers being the stewards of the content. If, excuse me, if we stand up a code base on the IT side and if we design the interface from Marketing Creative Services to comply with all of these accessibility standards, it's all for naught if the content that actually goes into the website is also not accessible as well. So that's why you are the third party in this partnership of making our web presence at the university accessible, because you are the stewards of the content. So that's making sure that when you're using your subhead styles, again, you're using them appropriately. When you're creating links to content, that those links are formatted appropriately. And when you're providing any images on your website, that those images always provide descriptive alt text for your users who cannot actually see those images on the page, or who might just have other issues if they're low vision, if it's a cognitive disability, something along those lines, making sure that they can still access that information and understand what's going on the page, even if they can't see it on a traditional desktop. So, like I just said, using your subhead styles appropriately, always creating contextual links, and providing descriptive alt text on all of your images. Those are the 3 steps that you need to make sure you're performing on every single web page on your websites as you're managing your websites. And so we're actually going to go ahead and take a look in the back end so you can see what those 3 steps look like live and in person. So let me scoot on over to Google Chrome, and let me make sure that you guys can see Google Chrome. I don't think that you can. Okay, can everybody see my screen? I'm going to trust that means yes. Okay, so right now we're looking at what's known as one of our classic theme GW Drupal websites. This is the theme that we first launched in 2012. Many of you are aware that we do have a new theme available called the editorial theme, and we'll be looking at that in just a moment. That's over here. The classic theme has everything that you need to make sure that your website content is accessible. So I've got a pretty basic page stood up here right now, and you can see it's got just a page title, and you can kind of see it's got some chunked paragraphs with some subheads in there. So we're going to go ahead and get in there and start doing some basic formatting to this page just to show you what you need to do, again, to make sure that your website content is accessible for all of your users. So I'm going to go ahead and go into New Draft. And the first thing that we can see on the page is that we've got this opening subtitle, which just says, "What is Lorem Ipsum?" A trap that a lot of our content owners and managers fall into when they're trying to make something stand out on the page is they'll come in here and they'll start using the formatting options over here to try and make it stand out. They'll make it really big. They'll put underline on it. They might, put some special characters around it, things like that, all in an effort to make it visually stand out for the users. The problem with that is that from a technical aspect, you haven't done anything to actually make that content accessible. You've put some visual aesthetics on it, for sure, for somebody who's looking at a desktop computer, and they might see it, and they might say, oh, this is important, I need to pay attention to it. But if it's a user who's not on a traditional desktop, if they're relying on an assistive device, they're not going to be able to absorb that information the way that somebody else would be able to. And the reason why is, again, on that technical side, there is code that's also at play here, and that code will only get applied if you're using the proper styles. Just applying bolding, that's just an aesthetic style. That's just bold. It's not one of those format styles where a search engine crawler or an assistive device will say, okay, this piece of text right here is a little more important than the rest of the paragraph text. This site owner, this content manager is saying that this is a subhead, and if I am reading this information to somebody using a screen reader, I need to make sure that I read this line of text to them. So instead of making that content bold, what you actually will want to do is come over here to where you see this drop down that says normal, and if you hover over it, you can see that it says paragraph format there in the pop-up text. You want to expand that and then select heading 4. On the marketing and creative services side, we've designed, where it says heading 3. On the marketing and creative services side, we've designed this font so that it's going to visually comply with the rest of the aesthetic design on the front end of the site. And back here, it doesn't really look all that special. It's going to change once you see it on the front end. But we've gone ahead and made sure that the visual aesthetics of it comply with the rest of the design in the framework for GW Drupal. And we've also made sure that it's big enough to pass accessibility standards for somebody who might have low vision challenges, and also has enough contrast against the background of the site, again, for somebody who might have low vision challenges that they're dealing with. So again, all you have to do to change your subhead style is to highlight that text, go over to your paragraph formats, and then select heading 3 as the paragraph style that you want on that text. And once you do that, if you ever go into the source code for your pages, you'll see that we now have what's called an H3 tag around that text. If we had not put that subhead style on this text, if we had left it as normal, going back into my source code, you can see that this is just a P tag, which is the tag for paragraph. So that is why the search engine crawlers and the assistive devices would have just skipped over it entirely and not recognized that it was actually a subhead, regardless of any other aesthetic styles that you might have placed on that bit of text. Sorry guys, I've got some background noise here. I'm trying to get that reduced for you. I'm not sure if it's coming through the microphone. So that's how you actually use your subheads appropriately. Something that you want to avoid doing at all costs whenever you are trying to design your subheads and design the styles on your pages is you want to make sure that you're not applying your subhead styles to large amounts of text that are not actually subheads. So this is another trap that we often see our users fall into, is they say, okay, well, I have a new policy, or there's a new regulation, or there's something really important that happened. Maybe there was a service that we provide and that service is down. So we want to make sure that people see it. So they'll, the site owners will come in and they'll say urgent announcement. Our service is down. We are aware it is being investigated. Please check back on this website for more information. And then they'll take that entire paragraph, even just a sentence, and they'll apply the subhead 3 style to that. The problem with doing that is, again, this is not a topic change on the page. This is just an announcement that you're trying to put out there. It's a temporary thing that's going to go away as soon as this issue is over. It doesn't really fall into the parameters for what a typical subhead is, which is the topics that you're talking about on the page. And so if I'm a website user with low vision, a cognitive disability, completely blind, and I'm relying on a screen reader to read the page aloud to me, and I've said, okay, I'm coming to this page because I know that it has the information that I need. So just read the subheads aloud to me. What my screen reader is going to do is it's going to ignore every single piece of text that's wrapped in that P tag I showed you earlier, and it's only going to show me the items that have the H tags around them, regardless of whether it's an H3, an H4, or whatever. It's going to skip over everything else except for anything that has that H tag around it. And so because I, as a site owner, said I need people to see this, so I'm going to put that subhead style on it because it's going to make it big and bold. Then I'm going to make it big and bold, and then I'm going to put some special characters around it, whatever I can do to just make it visually stand out. Me, as the website end user, using my assistive device, I now have to sit here and listen to this line of text being read aloud to me. There's nothing that I can do to stop that from happening because you, as the site owner, have placed that H tag around it by applying that subhead style. And that's actually breaking website accessibility standards and compliance. So you want to make sure that you don't do that. Those are the kind of things that we can get dinged on. There are other things that you can do to call out that kind of text or those kind of actions or issues when they arise without going the route of excuse me, using the subhead styles to try and visually call those things out. So that's a trap that you want to avoid as well whenever you're managing your website content. Only use your subheads to call out topics on your page. And when you use your subheads, you want to make sure that you're going in numerical order as much as possible. So in our classic sites, there's really just heading 3 and heading 4 that have been styled, but I'm going to scoot over here to our new editorial theme, and I'm going to take the same steps. And in the editorial theme, there are more options, basically. So if you go to your paragraph format styles here, you'll see you have 2 all the way down to 6. And those were present in the classic theme as well, but they're not styled after heading 4. Heading 5 and heading 6 have not, unfortunately, been styled to really comply with the rest of the theme. So they'll have some default styles on them. They just won't really fall in line with the rest of the aesthetic of the site. They'll still meet accessibility standards. So don't think that you can't use them, but just don't be surprised if you do use them and you see, oh, well, that's not really visually what I was expecting to happen. Unfortunately, again, we did not style them when the service was created. We stopped at 3 and 4. But we made up for that when we designed the new editorial theme, when we realized, yeah, we should probably style all of the options. So all of the subhead options now have styles available to you all the way from 2 all the way down to 6. So you can keep using those. And again, you want to make sure you're going in as intuitive a manner, meaning the numbers that you're using. So you don't want to start at 2 and then jump to 4 and then go back to 3 and then maybe down to 6. You want to go in order, and that just means that if you start with 2, the next one should be 3, so on and so forth. It's okay to jump around when 2 things are at the same level. So these 2 are at the same level, but then this one goes down to something that might be like a subhead, for lack of a better term. But then we go back up and we say that we want to, and I think I've been using the wrong numbers, we want to go back up to 2. So it's okay to, just for the sake of not confusing you guys, I'm going to change these so that they actually match what we're trying to do. It's okay to, start at 2, have 2 3s, then maybe a 4, and then go back up to a 3 if the next item is on the same level as the other items that were at a subhead 3. So it's okay to do something like that. But again, you just want to make sure that you're not jumping around unintuitively. But again, you also want to make sure you can see in this theme the styles are much bigger on the fonts. So it's a lot more tempting to use these from an aesthetic standpoint when something comes up that you want to highlight for urgency reasons. Please, please, please do not do that. Again, it will break accessibility compliance standards, and it could put the university in a bad spot. And then also just on the front end of your website, it does come across as, breaking the aesthetics for the rest of the site. It's like all of your pages have this well thought out sort of layout, your font use is consistent, and then you get to this one thing where it's like almost like those old school flashing red font things that you used to see on websites back in like the 90s. You don't want to do that. So again, use your subhead styles appropriately to define the topics on your page, and make sure that you're going in an intuitive order when you're selecting them. So in the new theme, if you started with 2, the next one should be 3, then 4, so on and so forth. Don't kind of jump around erratically without there really being a rhyme or a reason to it. So that is the basics of how you use your subhead styles. Are there any questions on that so far? Okay. So I'm going to save this so we don't lose it. I'll just save it as a draft. And same over here. So then the next thing that we're going to talk about is contextual links. And so now that I've saved it, you can see we've got our subhead styles on there. So our page is getting a little more formatting to it that visually makes sense, but it's also going to make sense on the technical side for a user and a search engine crawler scanning this page. So back to our classic site, I'm going to go ahead and click on this Edit Draft tab, and we're going to take a look at creating contextual links. So link management is another one of those things that a lot of our website users struggle with. It seems like such a simple thing. If you have a link, you just copy it from somewhere, paste your link in, and you think I'm done. The thing is, again, from a technical aspect, we need to make sure that those links are not just readable to somebody looking at it on a desktop, but it's also readable to machines, whether that be a search engine crawler or an assistive device. And this also touches on mobile accessibility. You want to make sure on mobile devices that it's helpful as well. So what we've learned at this point in the user experience and the digital space is that users don't respond well to seeing just that raw link spelled out. They need more context around what it is that you say you're linking to. So what that means for you as a website owner is if you're linking to something, make your link contextual. And we found that that is the most successful way for your links to perform. And when we say create your links contextually, we just mean whatever plain language way that you would describe the thing that you're linking to, those words should be the link. So if you're talking about linking to the George Washington University, to the main site, oh goodness. I don't know if it's the oldest institution, but I'm going to say that. Okay, so if this is your sentence, the George Washington University website provides an array of information on DC's oldest higher education institution. The George Washington University website, that should be your contextual link if that's what you're planning to link to. So obviously we always recommend that users paste in the link to avoid typos. This one's nice and short, so I'm going to go ahead and type it in. Since it's external, I'm going to set it to open in a new window. But you can see that now this is the link. These plain language words that I'm describing where I'm sending my users to, that is the link those are the words that I've used to create my contextual link on the website. What we often see happen instead is users will do something along the lines of click here for more information on the George Washington University. And then I'm going to copy this because it's actually a perfect sentence for the next one as well. They will make the words, click here, the link. And then they will go through the exercise of creating their link. And they may or may not open the link up in a new window. It's always a good practice to do that, but it's not actually an it is an accessibility thing, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then the final thing that we often see people do is if we take that same sentence right there, we see them then just put this at the end. So the problem here, and I'm going to bullet these to make them stand out a little easier, or number them. The problem here is that if this is a search engine crawler scanning this website, trying to see what links you say that you have on your page and what those links are about, in this first one, it very, very clearly states the George Washington University website. So that search engine crawler knows, okay, this is what they say they're linking to. It's not looking to see what the link behind this text is. It's just looking at this text. Same thing for an assistive device, primarily with screen readers. If, again, I'm using a screen reader on your website because maybe I'm completely blind or I have low vision or some sort of, degenerative eye disease that just makes it hard for me to read the website, maybe a cognitive disability that makes it hard for me to focus when trying to read, so it's easier for me to have the website read aloud to me. I can say to my screen reader, just read me the links on this page. I'm looking for a specific one because there's a thing that I need to do. So when I get to these 3 lines here, I'll hear this read aloud as the George Washington University website. What that means. I'm going to hear is click here. I'm not going to hear anything else. And then for this last one, it will read, depending on my device, it's either going to spell this link out to me letter by letter. It's going to say www.gwu.edu, or it might actually just try and sound that out as a word itself. In either case, it's not accessible for me. So you want to make sure that you're always making the action, the location that you're sending your users to, or whatever other plain to make that your link. So this is a really easy one because you're talking about going to another website, but if you're talking about an application, the same rules still apply. So I'm going to go back up here to put in a new line of text. So if you're defining an application or an action that you want your users to take, the same rules still apply. You just need to think about, okay, how am I going to format this sentence to talk about the thing I need my users to do? So if it's applications for the next academic year's scholarships, oops, not even sure how I did that. Are due on the first of the month. You can have the word applications be the link, but you can see that there's not a lot of places in this sentence to really make it clear, if I'm just hearing that link read aloud, about what it is I'm linking to. So applications is really broad. It could mean anything. So you would then want to take a look at the sentence and say, okay, well, how can I reformat it to be a little more clear about what it is I'm linking to? So applications, you can put the name of the application. You can just restructure your sentence and say applications are due for the next academic year scholarship on the 1st of the month. And I'm just going to put the name of scholarship at the beginning. So now it could be name of scholarship applications are due, and then that could become your link. You really just need to step back and kind of think, okay, it's not just about putting a sentence up here as if I'm reading a Word document and then just picking something within there to link to. You have to think, if the only thing I'm going to hear is this link, what's going to make the most sense? And those are the words that you want to structure your sentence around, basically creating that link and providing that information to your users within an intuitive context. So in this case, we've made the document title the link. If you wanted to focus it on being an action-based link, that's fine as well. So you can say submit your application for the next academic year before the 1st of the month. And then you can make submit your application. I can't get my cursor in there. You can make those words your link, because here, again, if all I'm hearing are the words submit your application, then I'm going to understand clicking this link is going to perform that action. It's going to take me to the application that I can fill out and perform the action that I need to do. And the one above it, if it's just saying name of scholarship applications, then I can surmise, okay, this is probably going to take me either to another web page that gives me information on this particular scholarship application, or it's going to take me to a document about the scholarship application. The important thing is that I'm getting the context about what it is that I'm linking to, and I'm not just hearing click here, nor am I hearing a link read aloud to me. So does that make sense to everybody? Okay, again, I'm going to take the silence as a yes. Everybody's very quiet this morning.
Yes,
okay, good, thank you. All right, well then the last thing we're going to take a look at then is your links. And this is another one that, again, people struggle with. We tend to think of images as really as being decorative, but they do also serve a functional standpoint. So I'm going to, excuse me, add an image right here in line with my text. So I'm just going to put my cursor down here, and then I'm going to go to my insert image icon. Click on Browse Server, and excuse me. I'm going to put 2 images in there because there tend to be really 2 types of images that we see used. And the first one we'll do is like a campus shot. So we'll say Insert File. And I can tell you that from the technical side of the house with the Division of IT in partnership with Marketing Creative Services, we've rolled it out now so that anytime you have an image on your website, you are required to provide alternative text, commonly referred to as alt text or an alt tag. And the expectation is that you, as a site owner, will provide a descriptive alt tag on that image. Excuse me. So what that means is this field right here, unfortunately there's not an asterisk on it, but you can see that it is bolded. That's now a required field. If you just click OK and try and get your image in there, you will get an error message that says, please provide alt text for this image. So you have to put something in this field. A lot of times what we often see users do is put the file name. So the file name on this particular image is this. If I am a search engine crawler or an assistive device, and for a user who can't see this photo, this is what I'm going to hear. I'm going to hear Gelman Library UP 2014 JMC 78271090. That provides absolutely no context about what's going on in this image. Sometimes we'll just see it say photo 1. Same thing. All the user's going to hear is photo 1. So that's not providing any context for that user who can't see this photo. What you need to be doing is describing what's going on in that image. So we can see here that this is a shot of the front entrance of Gelman Library. So we can just say the front entrance of Gelman Library. And that provides descriptive alt text that's going to make sense to somebody who can't see this image for themselves. And it's important to note that this doesn't just get used by assistive devices. If you've ever pulled up an email on your phone that had an image in there and you couldn't see it, that alt tag that I just filled in, that's what the user's going to see in your email instead. So a lot of times you'll see these, think about if you subscribe, I'm sure all of us do, to some sort of marketing type email, that those tend to be very image heavy. They don't put a lot of text in their emails anymore. They do a lot of images. If you've ever gotten one and you've opened it on your phone and all you see is photo 1, photo 2, photo 3, or over and over again you see like the name of the company, that's because that's what they put in for their alt text. You have no idea what it is they're trying to sell you, what it is you might need to do, because they didn't take the time to provide that context for you with descriptive alt tags. So that's another place where this particular field will come into play. So in this case, when you're talking about a location, it's okay to put in the name of the location, but try and be descriptive with it. You don't have to go into too much detail. It's okay to just say the front entrance of something, or Kogan Plaza in the spring, something along those lines. You don't have to really get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. You just need to provide enough information so that if I can't see that photo, I still have an understanding of what's going on within it, and within the larger context of everything else you have on your page, it's going to come together and make sense to me. Another type of photo that we often see placed into websites are, I think there's one here, sort of event-based or action-type photos. So on this one, you can see that we've got some student dancers performing, and right then, that right there can be your alt text. You can say 6 student dancers perform in a showcase. You don't have to get into the details of the type of dance they're doing, what they're wearing, if they're women versus men. It's not really necessary. You just really need to give your users the context of what's going on. But when we have these types of photos where people are performing, or it's an event, something that we often see people do is highlight the name of the event as the alt text. So let's say that this was a Corcoran Next thesis performance. We'll see people put Corcoran Next performance. As somebody who maybe can't see this image, I have no idea what type of performance. Is it a play? Is it a dance? I have no idea. That's not providing, excuse me, that's not providing descriptive information for me as a user. That's really you just kind of putting the name of that event in there again, which again, it's not providing any context for what's going on. So you want to be descriptive in the alt text that you're providing based off of the image that's in there. So student dancers I don't remember the exact one I had before. So that's what I'm going to put there in this case. And I think I just saw a question come through. Let me check the chat. So it says, we have some pages with both English and Chinese text. How does this get read to the users? Does it cause any issue? And if so, should foreign language text be placed at the end of the page or on a separate page? That's really going to depend on the makeup of your page and also on the user's setup for their system as well. As we all know, whenever we set up any device that we have, whether it be a phone or a computer or whatnot, we tell that device what our preferred language is, and so that's going to come into play as well. I can't tell you with 100% accuracy what's going to happen if I, as an end user, have said that English is my preferred language, and then I encounter a website, page, or application or whatnot written in a foreign language. I think that my machine is going to do its best to read it aloud to me, and it might even, they're getting smarter when they build these devices. They might even give me the option of saying, this is in a foreign language, would you like it to be read aloud, in this language, and then it's going to take its best guess to figure out what that is. I think we might have all seen that on web browsers. If you go to a page that has a foreign language, sometimes at the top you'll get that little pop-up that says, this page is in Chinese, would you like it translated into English? So that might be something that these users are given the option for. As far as how the text should be placed, whether at the end of the page or on a separate page, there are options for that. I don't necessarily think you have to do an entirely new page unless it's a lot of content, like a complete duplication of the page. Maybe you want to opt instead for using tabs or accordions on your page so that one tab is in English and the other one is in Chinese. So there are options, and our team is happy to sit down and talk to you, and also to figure out what are the implications for accessibility when it is in a foreign language. So we're happy to help you figure that out and to work with you to get it on the page in the most intuitive manner as possible. That is a great question. I'm now curious to know how that works. Are there any other questions? Okay. So yeah, with your images, again, you want to make sure that you're describing for your user what's going on in that photo. So if it's a location, describe what the location is. Don't just put the location's name, because often that's not going to be descriptive enough. Just kind of provide a little more context. The entrance of Gelman Library. If you have action going on in the image, describe what that action is. Students performing in a showcase, basketball players during a game, something along those lines. Try to avoid as much as possible using the event name as the alt text, because it's not descriptive enough for your users. They won't necessarily know what's going on in that particular image and why it's important within the larger context of your page. So then the last thing that we often see users do whenever they're trying to add an image to their page, and I'm not sure, I should have tested this before, but images with text in them, that is another one that users struggle with to figure out, how do I get this image in here? Maybe it's got all the information that I want my users to have, and so I'm just going to put that in there. I'll use this one. Not the greatest example, but we'll go ahead and put that in there. So when it comes to images with text on them, the text that's in the image is what needs to go into your alternative text field. So in this case, my text would be give now, make a difference. And that will tell everything, that will tell the user who is hearing this image read aloud everything that they need to know about what's going on in this graphic. I don't need to go into any other detail. I don't need to say it's a donation link or anything like that. They just need to know what's going on in this graphic with the text that's in the graphic. And that's why we always caution users against using images with a lot of text in them, especially posters that have been designed for print, as an image on the page. Every piece of text in that poster has to be in your alt text field. So imagine if instead of this just being, make a difference, give now, if this was an entire poster about an event that's coming up, from the event title, any guest speakers or other special presenters, things along those lines, the date and location and time the event's happening, any particular crucial information as far as a rain location, accessibility accommodations. All of that information is going to have to go into this one line, and that's all going to get read aloud to the user when they get to this image. So that's why you want to avoid doing that, because after a certain point, it's not accessible to your user to have that much text read aloud to them just for an image, especially if you've built a whole page around it, and then on top of that, you've dropped in this poster text-heavy image. And again, going back to emails and mobile as well. On mobile, that image is going to scale down, and the text within that image is not going to be legible anymore. Your users are not going to be able to use it. So all of this crucial, critical information that you thought you were presenting to your users, they can't see it if they're looking on a phone, and potentially on a tablet as well if they've got one of the smaller ones, maybe on a big one of these giant iPads now. But if they're just pulling it up on their phone, they're not going to be able to see what's all that text that's in on that graphic and that poster. And then in the email as well, if you just kind of drop that image in there into your email, and for whatever reason their email client can't load the image, They don't get any of the information that's in the poster, and if you haven't put descriptive alt text in there, meaning all of the text that's in your poster, if you've just put photo 1 or the name of your event, again, they're not going to get any of that information. So that's why when we say if you have a poster that was designed for print, use that poster for print. Don't use that to be the content on your page. Find the decorative element in that poster that can serve to be the aesthetic piece on your page, but put the crucial information as text on your page. And if you don't want to kind of slice the poster, if there's no way to really slice the poster just to get one single decorative element out of it, whoever designed that poster for them, let them know, hey, we also want to tie this graphic into our website. Can you design something for that as well? And they'll provide you something. If you're working with marketing creative services, you can say to us, I need a print poster, but I also need something for my website. And they'll work with you to figure out how to get you something designed specifically for web that's going to allow you to have that decorative piece, also having it be informative, accessible, and all of that. But that crucial information, that needs to be text on the page. It should not be in the poster itself. Any questions on that? Okay, and then are there any questions in general? Because again, these are the 3 things that we want to make sure you guys understand, and the 3 steps that we want to make sure that you always perform when you are trying to make your website content accessible. We want to make sure that you're always using your subheads appropriately, so you're using them to define the topics on your page. You're not using them for visual prominence or to promote something or to highlight something that you're saying, okay, this page in general is about web accessibility basics. And in particular with web accessibility basics, let's talk about subheads. And then next we'll talk about contextual links. And then next we'll talk about descriptive alt tags on your text. But we're not saying, urgent, this new thing just happened and we need to make sure you know. Step we are always performing, and you understand why, is making your so that your link text is contextual for whatever it is that you're linking to, whether it be another website, a document, or an action that you're having your users take. Always avoiding using things like click here, read more, learn more, more information, really sort of generic, non-descriptive wording like that, not using that as your link, because again, that's exactly what the user's going to hear. They're not going to hear click here and then the link itself. They're just going to hear click here. And then speaking of the link itself, again, that's also not accessible for your user because they're, again, depending on their device, going to hear www.gwu.edu. And if they're using an assistive device, there's a good chance that it's going to be difficult for them to type that link in somewhere if they needed to, or it's going to actually try and read this aloud as a single word itself. So instead, always making sure that your link is contextual, plain language about where you're linking to, what you're linking to, or what action it is that your user is going to take. And then finally, with your images, just making sure that you have descriptive alt text in there so that, if you can't see this image, and a simple exercise you can perform is just close your eyes. You can't see this image. What does that alt text say? So this one says the front entrance of Gelman Library. Even if I've never seen Gelman Library, I know what it is that you're talking about. So I have the context for what it is that this image is displaying. This next one, students dancing in a performance showcase. I don't know the type of dance that they're doing. It doesn't really matter. I just understand that they're dancing. It's a showcase. That's really all the context that I need to know about what's going on in this photo. And then with this last one, give now, make a difference. That sounds like a donation. That makes sense to me. I understand the context of what's going on in this graphic that has text on it. If I had deviated and put anything else in there that's really more self-serving on the administrative side of the house, so the name of the event, anything like that, it wouldn't be serving the end user who needs to know what's going on in that photo. So yeah, guys, that's all that I have for you today. Are there any questions? I want to leave it open just in case there are. We're coming up at the end of the hour, but I want to make sure if something wasn't clear, if we didn't cover something that you thought we might cover today as a specific use case, that we can maybe chat about that as well. So feel free to put it in the chat box. You can also take yourself off mute if that's what you prefer.
I'm good, thank you very much.
Okay. Well, if everybody's good, thank you for joining me today. Again, I did record today's session, so I'm just going to have to wait for that link to be available. I might need to clean up any background noise and things along those lines, but I will share the recording with you guys once it is available, as well as some additional resources, and you'll see that come to you in a recap email. If not this week, I will try to get that to you guys next week at the latest. Okay? Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, Tasha.
Bye.
Bye.